So what started?
Yeah.
How did it start all those years ago?
I went to a jam session. I was young, and I was playing and finished, and it was at a church, and a girl came up to me and said, "Would you like to be on TV?" I said, "Sure." What is it for? And she said, "It's a local talk show." And I knew the show. It was on what's called suburban cable. It was a great show, and I loved it, so I joined the show. And we had a band, and we played everything from, classic rock to 50s, and it was like a Tonight Show band. And then about 9 months in, there were some artistic differences, and I left. So after I left, the station called me and said, "Look, Bob, would you like to have your own show?" And I said, "Sure." So I had just come home from seeing Bucky Pizzarelli in New York, and I thought, this is a multi-million-dollar studio. They're full-time adults with degrees in filming this, and I want to do the best job I can, so I worked really hard. I went to guitar shows in New York, and I would just ask people, would you come down and film? Or be on film, and everybody did. At that time, YouTube really wasn't out, and it was on television. It started at 660,000 people, with a really small audience. And right off the bat, I was bringing in celebrities. And the first year, I went up to see Les Paul, and I got an introduction to Les, and he took a liking to me, and he said, "Come on up, Bob." And I later found out, outside of his own Les Paul and Mary Ford show and PBS, I was the only one to ever film him.
Wow.
So I was, he saw something in me, obviously. Yeah. And then from there, the dam broke open, and I was bringing in everybody at that point. Well, not everybody, not the rock stars, because but jazz, a lot of jazz and blues artists and country. So yeah, that's how it started.
And meanwhile, you were doing all of that and also writing books and doing your own music. I know you had a couple projects. You got involved in one that got a Grammy, which was quite an amazing feat, because that's not easy to get. And
I was paired with May Pang, who is John Lennon's former girlfriend, and she has several books out on her and John. The Lost Weekend is what it's known as, and so we got a Grammy for that, and I've been fortunate, and I'd like to thank you, because you paired me on a CD with Dr. Wayne Dyer, who I loved, and would never have expected that. And that was a pleasant surprise. And that came through you, so thank you.
And then, of course, you did the Ave Maria, Queen of Angels, which was an amazing blessing. That was quite a gift. And you continued to do work, and you then started doing some of your shows with the world-renowned artist, kind of the most famous pop artists of our time, right?
My television shows?
Yeah.
Oh, I brought on pop artists, but I had a guitar player. Well, I had a bass player who is world renowned, Tyrone Brown, and Tyrone was with the Max Roach Quartet, which is from the Charlie Parker fame. He was with Max Roach for 20 years, and Pat Martino did all the albums with Pat, and all of the platinum albums with Grover Washington. So
And then didn't you go to the Peter Max studio for a while? Weren't you recording?
Oh yeah, I did. That's what you're referring to. Yes, I recorded about 5 years of Peter Max's in New York, and during that period, Peter and I became really close friends, and I would see Peter occasionally outside of the show as a friend. And when I went up to play his parties and in different functions over the years, as a volunteer too, I would volunteer my time, which is how I think a lot of people should do that because it does come back to you. If you volunteer, it comes back in many ways. But Peter would play with the band, and he always played an E flat. Peter loved E flat, which is a guitar player's nightmare. You know.
Why did he Did you ever ask him why E flat?
I think that's how he learned. He's self-taught,
and
he picked up the key of E flat and stayed in it. It was comfortable and never left it. So, yeah, we would play 1.5 hour E flat jam. Yeah, but one night I was leaving, and he said, "Bob, come here," and he sat me down next to him, and we're in front of the piano that Ringo Starr gave him. Ringo is his very best friend. And tears were coming down his face. He said, "Bob, I want you to know this was the greatest night of my life to have for you to let me play with you." I thought, "Geez, Peter, that's really kind of you." He's a very humble man.
Yeah.
And for who he is, I mean, great artist, wonderful artist.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So I was blessed. Yeah,
so absolutely.
Very
So meanwhile, and it's so interesting because a lot of people do not realize this, but I have so many friends in the music business, and you have to wear two hats. You have to wear two hats because doing what you do, even though you work really, really hard, it isn't really enough to survive with the family and kids and everything. You have to carry on, even though you've done some amazing books. And I have to thank you this morning, as I was just mentioning to the audience, I have this new hope. It's going to be called The Gift of Hope, the Gift of Hope Project. So I'm so glad you let me know. I knew you had a book out, but I did not realize that you did this amazingly powerful book. And it's not that hard to read, but it's so full of amazingly inspirational information that I recommend anyone going through any kind of stress to get it. It's called 25 Reasons to Live. There's Always Hope. And
yes, that was part of a series, which I'm not finished with, to be coffee table books. And they're short and to the point. And this is break glass and pull, basically. So people, when they think of suicide, they're contemplating it for a long time. It's typically not impulsive, but the act of suicide is impulsive. When they decide to do it, they decide in a heartbeat, and they do it. And I've had one of my best friends, my other bass player, where I played in a band, walk in front of a train about 7 years ago. I've had students do it. I had a former producer commit suicide. So I've been around it, and I think if you live long enough, you do experience depression, and that thought does come. It's an easy way out. It is. So I thought, why not take the positive? And I wrote one page on 25 different reasons not to commit suicide. So if you're impulsive and you're about to do it, it's a great book to grab because it's simple. It's simple, meats and potato, and it's irreversible, and it speaks about that. And there's one thing I did leave out that I wish I had put in that runs through all religions is detachment, is being detached from worldly possessions and worldly wants and desires. And the more people are detached, the harder it is to leave something when it leaves you. If somebody dies that you're close to, or you lose your identity as like in a job, or if in my case, if I were to lose my left hand as a guitarist, then there's my attachment right there.
Yeah, so, good point.
And that runs through. It runs through Buddhism, Christianity, Taoism, Judaism. It's a one principle that runs through all these different sects and religions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I wanted to talk to you about, you did a blues cruise recently, and I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I called a former guest, a manager of a former guest, Joe Bonamassa, was on as a kid, and I helped him when he needed help. He was really, he was up and coming, great player, and had some notoriety, not like he has today. So I called his manager, Roy Weissman. And if you know Roy Weissman, Roy's just a beautiful, great person. I mean, he's the type of guy that, doesn't mix words, and he'll just tell you what he feels. So anyway, I called him, and he immediately called me right back. I left a message, and no hesitation. How much money do you need, Bob? What do you need? Because I had an offer on the table with PBS to distribute a guitar show nationally, but never had the real production value I needed. So Roy got his sister Carol involved, and we made this happen. So we finished recently the first season, which is slated to go on PBS, and part of that filming process was going on the Blues Cruise at Sea, and that was from Tampa to Cayman Islands, sponsored by the foundation, run by Joe Bonamassa and Roy Weissman, and it's pretty much celebrity blues players, and it was great. So we filmed many shows on that, and I'm scheduled in August to go to the Barcelona cruise with Peter Frampton.
Oh, how fun is that going to be? Wait, I'm jealous. I want to go on that.
You know what? I'm jealous of myself. Let's say that.
So when
I just got back. Yeah.
Well, when you go on these, I mean, I just did a little recording. I was in Sedona, and I recorded a bunch of shows there on audio. But what do you have to do? Because as it was, my luggage was checked because I had an audio box, a microphone, headsets, and some basic stuff, batteries and things. Do you have to bring anything, or do you guys that did film it bring everything?
Yeah, my producer brought everything.
Oh, that's good.
He's self-contained and very high caliber. And we set up in what's called the Bliss Room.
The Bliss Room?
Yeah, and we filmed. And I had Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Eric Gale, Paul Schaefer, and many others, Larkin Poe. These are all well-known artists, and rightfully so. And it was great. So I just returned from Nashville, and I had Larry Carlton, who did a lot of the Steely Dan.
I love Larry Carlton.
Yeah, they're building a Larry Carlton museum, actually. So
in Nashville? In Nashville?
I don't know. No. Probably L.A. because he's from that area. And Robin Ford, blues legend.
Love Robin Ford. Yeah.
Yeah, and Brad Whitford from Aerosmith. And I've learned it took me over 600 episodes of filming to not get in their way. So I'll sit and listen and let them talk. And they all go over an hour. And Brad went almost an hour and a half, the two of us. And we're comfortable with one another. That's the main thing. I'm there to make them comfortable. So a friend of mine, Rob Slater, great guitar player, said the other day, he said, Bob, you're the guitar whisperer. And I said, I don't know. But he said, no. He said, you have that calmness about you that people relate to you, and they'll say things they would never say on television. So I've been blessed. I've been very, very lucky, very fortunate.
Where can people see some of those interviews that you've done, and where will they be able to watch you in the future?
Well, they're about halfway edited, so I would say, give it 6 months, and then they'll start to air sporadically on different PBS stations, and it will be offered to all 350 outlets. And I feel confident it's a great show, not just for guitar, but for people. It's just a wonderful show to watch. It's entertaining, and they're great stories, and they're current, and it's sophisticated, and the production value is great. So with all of that, it has this synergy. And I feel confident it'll be on PBS throughout the nation, this time next year.
Well, I just have a minute left, so where do people find out about your website? Where can they find out more about you?
Well, right now, go for this current show is worldofguitar.org.
Okay.
And you can read that, and that's being updated as we speak. So
worldofguitar.org. And if you go to Amazon, you can just put in Bob Miles and that one book I got this morning on it has for free if you're an Amazon Prime member.
I have a bunch of books on there. I'm fortunate. Very, very lucky. So my next one is The Tao of Playing a Musical Instrument. So that's the next one I'm in the process of. And you can play violin, piano, it doesn't matter. It's how to approach practicing and your mindset and so forth.
Okay, well, I've got my next guest calling in, so I'm going to say aloha for now.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you
so much.